What's up, y'all? It's your boy Kairos, and I am bringing you the Diablolist Demonology spec today. So, this spec is actually doing pretty damn good, in my opinion. There's a lot of damage. Damage is really consistent. Um, I'm sure there's better talent build, but to get into it, basically, in between your Ruination and your Hand of Gul'dan empowerment from Ruination there, and there's another one that impacts your what is it called? Your Shadow Bolt, which also hits really hard as well. Um, and the funny thing about it is, Hand of Gul'dan is actually doing a ton of your damage. Yeah, Infernal Bolt, hurl a bolt into the abyss, dealing 500,000 some damage, and generates 3 soul shards. It's looking pretty good. Warlock is doing a lot of healing, a lot of sustained damage right now. Demonology has a go every minute. You don't lose the... If I believe correctly, you chose in between the 1 minute cooldown and the 2 minute cooldown with Reign of Tyranny. Basically, it was either a burst every minute, empower all your pets, or, your Reign of Tyranny would actually... Yeah, so this was the 1 minute and a half cooldown, because Tyrant used to be a minute and a half. So this is actually looking pretty good. So now your cooldown, you've got to go every 30 seconds with your Summon Gloomhound or Mark of Fahar. It deals X amount of damage, plus it deals more damage with the Spit, which is actually looking pretty damn good. There's a lot of sustained damage with this build. I'm sure you could drop Umbral Blaze and go into something else that's a little better, maybe even Power Siphon or, Bile Scourge Bombs and run this. This is actually looking really good. So if you actually go into the talent tree or even Imp Boss here, Imperator, it just makes your imps crit more often than not. Now there are a few things with this Howl of Terror. I'm not sure how this is going to work with this. Basically, it gives you a priest here. Instead of 30 seconds, it's 25, which actually could be really, really, really good into some comps. It's actually looking pretty sick. Of course, you're going to lose out on that. Go with Coil and your stun every 30 seconds. I believe Coil's 45. That's right. Yeah, 45 seconds, so you basically have to go every, let's say, 30 seconds with your stun and your Gloomhound and your Dread Dogs. This talent, the Houndmaster's Gambit, your Dread Suckers deal 50% increased damage while your Vile Fiend is up. That's every 30 seconds. So your Vile Fiend, actually everything up for Demonology kind of just matches up perfectly, and it feels like your Ruination and all that is pretty much... basically kind of procs, so you actually have a little more damage. Your damage is much less predictable. The typical minute every 30. They've buffed, it seems, a lot of your sustained damage, and every 1 minute go is a really big go. The Hand of Gul'dan, Ruination, and Infernal Bolt are actually hitting insanely hard in PvP right now. I think so, because the thing with Demonology is you're basically like a Zoo Master, so you're already doing X amount of damage with how many demons you have out. I'm actually probably going to play Demonology a lot more of this expansion than I did in Dragonflight. It's looking really damn good. I'm going to cover the other spec, Soul Harvester, in another video. I've played a few games. I've looked at the... And it's like, I've seen crits for like 2 million, 1 million. And Demonology doesn't really crit. Like, there's not like, oh, you want a big Chaos Bolt crit go. But honestly, the sustain is there. It's looking really good as far as sustain. Self-surviving as a Warlock, that's pretty much actually really good. It's actually looking kind of wild how much your damage is looking, how good it's looking. I do something like this. You don't really need that, I feel like. Maybe into like you know, if you're running with even another warlock or shadow priest or something, even fire mage, I believe. I'm not sure if they've changed their thing. Life Brood isn't that great, so you do something more like this on your normal talent tree. Let's see what else. You could even drop Amplify and go into this here, so you have a big absorb every 45 seconds. You've got Port, so you can literally line them up, so it's like every 20-ish seconds or so you've got a Port. You've got, you know, you always have something to respond with, to keep your healer pretty much in bounds and peel yourself and everything else. Demonology is looking really, really strong going into this. One of the issues that I've had with Demonology in the past, obviously, is you either A, have insane burst, or your burst is kind of lacking, but your sustain is good, so you're waiting until dampening. But it feels like with this spec, with the Diablolist build, it's actually looking fantastic, because the thing is, you get huge hits with Ruination Bolt and your Hand of Gul'dan. They're basically like huge modifiers on your Hand of Gul'dan. It either gives you shards or Hand of Gul'dan is free. Hand of Gul'dan damage has already increased. I think it's hitting for about 3 to 4, 500k, depending on a few factors on your mastery, on your haste. I'm stacking a little more haste than I am mastery just to have quicker cast speed. And this is probably right here. This is actually probably one of the things that's actually going to make Demonology way better. Increases all damage done by your pet by 4, but reduces the cast time of Shadow Bolt by 25 and increases its damage by 40%. So your, you know, Shadow Bolt damage can actually be somewhat very high this expansion, especially as haste values increase, mastery goes up, and all these different things go up. And I believe it's just it modifies your pet damage. Yeah, as you can see, I have 9,000, but I'm sure if I ran a full mastery build, it would be way more as far as the thing. But it just increases your damage on your pets. And I might actually do more mastery than haste, because if I'm already going to have a ton of essentially modifiers on Shadow Bolt that reduce the cast time, Hand of Gul'dan might be a little slower to cast. But the thing is even with Demonology, you're such a spammy spec anyway that you get kicked on Hand of Gul'dan, you get kicked on Fury, you spam Hand of Gul'dan. Same thing with Destro Lock, and it is just you just spam damage as Demonology. Demonology is literally like the warrior of Warlock specs. I feel like you have Mortal Strike, you have a ton of sustained damage, burst is great. You can kind of eat most other classes 1v1 as a demo lock. Threes, again, you run Shadow Play, you can run with an Elemental Shaman, hell, even an Enhancement Shaman, a Boomkin. Pretty much Boomkin, or Warlock can literally play with anything, as far as I'm concerned. It can play with another Warlock, which is the funniest thing about it. You can literally go, you know, Demonology, Affliction, and do a pile of damage, and everything that Demonology is actually doing this in the War Within is actually, it's pretty much all AoE. So, you know, I mean, there is like a margin of, you know, error. They can't be spread out too far, but the thing with Demonology is Umbral Flame or Umbral Blaze here actually does do quite a bit of damage. On the tooltip, it doesn't seem like it does a lot of damage, but over the course of a game, it can actually stack up to being a lot of damage, especially if you're getting a lot of cleave. So that was kind of like my thought process. Oh, you know, more cleave equals better, especially as Demonology. So going into like cleave comps, it's looking really, really strong. So I would run something like this essentially, and just go full into, you know, increases the attack of your Dreadstalkers by 10 in their critical strike chance. Basically just a bunch of modifiers on your Dread Dogs. And, you know, I don't like Carnivorous Stalkers. I feel like 10%'s too low of a chance. You're not, you know, you don't get the chance to proc more. It doesn't like suddenly proc when it's on cooldown. Haste values are already really low, so I don't really feel like you get a whole bunch of value out of that. Some other Warlocks may disagree, but I prefer things that are either chance on AoE, which sounds kind of crazy as demo, but the thing is you're going to have so much more cast time with Demonology, since your shadow bolts are going to be faster and they're actually going to be kind of pumping. And I believe, nope, they got rid of that talent. Basically, if you had a what do you call it, a succubus out, your shadow bolt cast time was reduced. But to basically get into it, so your beginning burst is going to look something like this. You're going to pop all your demons. You know, you're going to summon your demonic tyrant. Of course, one of the things I don't like is you don't get any more soul shards from it. But basically, there's a big demon. There's my demon right there. You know, you're just pumping, absolutely pumping as a spec. Not a lot of real big attacks, but you've got sources of, you have so many sources of damage that it's not even really that funny. Okay, I'm gonna summon Groomhound. It's gonna do a ton of my damage. It's gonna modify all of my Dreadstalkers. You know, say they're low. Stun, implosion. Implosion is actually somewhat hitting hard. I think if you have about 10 imps, I can hit for about 700k, which isn't a lot, but you know, here's an infernal bolt. You know, 600k ish. Another demon thing actually does pump. Oh, there's 1.1 mil. So you can see the power of Demonology in one sitting. Okay, I've got another burst. I think my Dreadstalkers are still out. Boom. Got him right in time. I'm going to summon another set of Dreadstalkers. And literally, this is literally all you're doing. You're just literally doing this. Implosion, add a little more burst damage. My demonic tyrant is pumping. I'm pumping. Get Dreadstalkers out of this hand of Gul'dan. You are just... I've got another go here in 30 seconds. Or here right now. I'll have another go in 30 seconds. I'm buffing my Dreadstalkers. Another demon. Gonna cast Hand of Gul'dan twice. Dreadstalkers. Hand of Gul'dan. There's another demon proc. So you can start to see where this spec, you can kind of layer your burst. So it's a ton of damage overall. Get my Dreadstalkers out. Get a few more Shadow Bolts out. Pop my Felguard. Pop my Vile Fiend. Hand of Gul'dan. This thing. Dreadstalkers. Hand of Gul'dan again. It is... Demonology is looking sick. Hand of Gul'dan twice. This is why I was thinking Umbral Brace. Okay, this is actually looking like a good talent because you get so many free Hands of Gul'dans. Because you can get 2 of them back to back. And there is a chance, I believe, there's a talent here. Hand of Gul'dan has a 15% chance to cast a second time on your target. I believe that can work on Ruination as well. Which, if it does, and it's the same amount of damage, you can essentially hit an entire team for 2 million damage. Anything beyond 8 targets. So you can actually chunk, you know, a, you know, TSG comp that way, and you're just cleaving them down with two things. Your Fel Lord, you're just, this spec is actually looking really fantastic, and I'm really like might play it more because like one of the things in Dragonflight that I didn't like about Demonology was you literally would run away from everything, and you weren't tanky like at all. I mean, there was times where Demo was kind of just too tanky. They nerfed it, whatever. You're still going to have the same play styles. Nothing's going to change. But I feel like with the entire changes on your talent trees, you have a lot more availability. Your cast times are quicker. That's one of the things where Demonology has always kind of suffered, is low haste values, low cast speed, and everything else has kind of been kind of a pain in the ass, to put it simply. But it's looking really good. I'm actually really looking forward to Demonology with the Diablolist build. I'm gonna check out what kind of seems to look like the Affliction build with this, with the Soul Harvester build. But I want to show you the Diablolist build and kind of how it works. And you guys have a good one, and thank you for watching. Go ahead and like and subscribe.